God, my hair. It's getting insanely long and crazy. But I'm not shaving until Michigan loses a game. Speaking of Michigan, go watch my Michigan video. I'm a Michigan fan. After Michigan's 52-17 win over Rutgers, we're now 9-0. So, God, it's crazy. This is the Big Ten video where I go over all the Big Ten games and how they looked. Starting from the very top, we're going to work our way down. I'm going to talk about certain games that I want to talk about. And then at the end, I'll talk about the Big Ten loser. All right, so first game, Ohio State, number 2 Ohio State, on the road against Northwestern. Now, it's funny. In my Michigan video yesterday, you saw my friend Evan. He has a YouTube channel as well, Evan Chino on YouTube. He was in my Michigan video, gave his opinion and stuff. He texted me the morning, yesterday morning, Saturday morning, before any game started, saying how he doesn't know who Northwestern is playing, but he thinks they're gonna win, whoever it is. And I said, they play Ohio State. And he's like, oh, never mind. Well, Northwestern actually was pretty tough for Ohio State for some reason. Played him tough. This was Northwestern's best game all year. And I didn't think I'd be able to say that, considering the fact that Northwestern has been pretty terrible all year. They didn't win. They didn't win this game. But they sure played hard. They sure played their best possible game. And it still wasn't enough, but they played Ohio State very good. I think this is one of Ohio State's worst games. So I don't think this is going to be like a huge deal in terms of this season. I think Ohio State is just having this is their rough game. This is their bad game. Northwestern just played really, really good at home. And even then, it still wasn't enough. If you're going to have a bad game, let it be against Northwestern. Ohio State wins 21-7. Northwestern actually scored first in this game, took a 7-0 lead, and held it for a while. Eventually, Ohio State scored, I think, was it 2 minutes before halftime? And it was 7-7 at halftime. Second half came around, and even though Ohio State scored again pretty early on and was in control for pretty much, in terms of the score, we're in control for all of the game, Northwestern was always in it. When Ohio State finally did score that third touchdown, make it 21-7, no one really gave Northwestern a shot after that. All right, it's over. Ohio State wins, and that ended up being the final score. C.J. Stroud had his by far worst day, 10 of 26 for 76 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Really bad game for C.J. Stroud. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, they played in the rain and wind. Northwestern did too. I don't want to hear those excuses. Ohio State can't run the football for whatever reason. We were able to run it a little bit better. It's Northwestern. You should be able to. Northwestern, I'm going to give them all the credit in the world for playing as well as they could have played. I don't think anybody gave them a chance of winning this game. But you know what? I'm going to give them their props because Ohio State was a 37.5-point favorite, and there was only 28 points scored total through both teams. So very impressive from Northwestern. Not offensively, but their defense played really, really good in this game. So holding Ohio State 21 points, that's the least amount of points Ohio State has scored since the Notre Dame game. And I think they said 70th game in a row where Ohio State has scored 20 or more points or something like that. That could have been broken tonight, honestly. It was 14-7 getting late into the game, and that could have been a ruined thing, but it didn't end up happening. You know who my Big Ten loser would have been if Ohio State would have lost. Yeah. But, nope, that didn't happen. We were rooting hard, though. We were rooting hard as Michigan fans. Evan and I were rooting hard for Ohio State to lose this game because it just would have been great to see Northwestern get a big win and Ohio State lose to a team they're not supposed to lose to. But no, reality was set. Ohio State's a much better team. So Ohio State ended up winning, pulling away. Ohio State, they play Indiana next week, so they'll win that one too. Indiana's no good. This year, typical Indiana. Northwestern, on the other hand, they play Minnesota on the road. So I mean, I don't know. They could probably win. I don't know. I feel like they just played their best game and they won't be able to play that well anymore. But anyways, Ohio State wins 21-7. They're 9-0 on the season, just like Michigan. It's a two-way race in the East at this point. Since the third best team in the East, it has 2 losses. All right. Speaking of the third best team, Penn State on the road as well. Number 15, Penn State on the road against Indiana. 45-14 win for Penn State. They utterly dominated this game. So, yeah, good job, Penn State. I think they held Indiana to pretty much nothing offensively. But, yeah. I got Maryland next week. We'll talk about Maryland. I'm disappointed in them. But good job, Penn State, for beating a bad Indiana team. You pretty much went out there and did what you needed to do and prove how much better you were than them. At least helps your ranking a little bit. Maybe, you could still get a New Year's Six game, a New Year's Six bowl game here. 10 wins. So, Indiana, on the other hand, they're 1-5 in the Big Ten, 3-5 record overall. So, they have it. It's still weird to me that their only Big Ten win is Illinois. I don't get it, but it was so early on. But yeah, I'd kind of like to look at this game, see where. Yeah, Indiana had 196 total yards compared to Penn State's 483. So not great. Really couldn't do much of anything, and I think that second touchdown was in garbage time. Could have been 45-7. But yeah, Penn State wins. Penn State, who do you guys play next? You play, Maryland. Next week, and then Indiana. Indiana, you guys play Ohio State. So, oh yeah, I already talked about that. Indiana, you play Ohio State, so it'd be a nice funeral for you. Minnesota, Nebraska. This game was kind of a shootout as well. Your typical Big Ten football game here. Nebraska, I think, had a 10-0 lead in this game over Minnesota, and Minnesota fans are like, remember when everyone was saying like how we were going to be able to compete with Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten because we beat like 2 bad FBS schools and an FCS school? Yeah, I remember. Minnesota's good. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're not bad or anything. They're decent. I'll give them that. They're okay. They're 6-3. So they're not great. They're not even that good. When they play teams that are below them, they win. When they play better teams, they usually get demolished. Take that Penn State game, for example. They got absolutely shellacked by Penn State because Penn State's that much better. but they're 6-3 on the season. They ended up beating Nebraska here, 20-13. Coming back to win this game and a close one. I did watch the last few minutes of this game, and it was pretty exciting. The Big Ten West, man. I'm going to talk about the standings because, I mean, the East is pretty much just like a two-way race at this point. But the West is a little more complicated. We'll talk about it here at the end. But Minnesota ends up pulling away, winning this game. Mo Ibrahim, I mean, he was 32 carries, 128 yards, and 2 scores. Minnesota has a really good running back right there, Mo Ibrahim. So he pretty much put the team on his back and carried them to victory. My hair is just ridiculous, man. Minnesota play Northwestern next week at home. Minnesota should win that one. Nebraska, I already know they play Michigan on the road next week. So at 3:30. So Michigan, Nebraska. I know that thing is peeling. That thing's been up there for like 8-9 years now. So it's peeling. But yeah, Nebraska play Michigan, Minnesota you play. Oh my God, I already forgot. Who was it? Northwestern. Jeez. Yeah. So Minnesota got the win they needed. They could not afford to lose this game because then they'd really fall behind in the West, and people really wouldn't be talking about them if they would have lost this game. Wisconsin and Maryland. This game I thought would be a shootout, that Maryland would pull away and win. That didn't happen. Wisconsin dominated this game pretty much from start to finish, and it was never really in doubt. Wisconsin ended up winning 23-10 over Maryland. Maryland just could not do anything in this game. I don't know. Excuse me. Maryland has fallen off, man. I don't know what happened to them, but they have 3 losses now. They're 6-3 and have a 500 record in the Big Ten. I don't know what's going on there. But Wisconsin wins. They look like typical Wisconsin from other years when they were really good. The only difference is that they have a 5-4 record. So yeah, and they're 4-4 or 3-3. Yeah, 3-3 in the Big Ten. And they're still in it too, because there's 3 other teams that are 3-3, and then you got Illinois, who's 4-2 now. So it's interesting. It's interesting. It's gonna be it could literally be any of those teams. I think it's, what is it now? I'll look at it. Well, I'll worry about it. I'll let me talk about this game. Yeah, Wisconsin just pretty much dominated this game from start to finish. Talia Tagovailoa, 10 of 23 for 77 yards and 1 touchdown, so he had a little bit better of a game than C.J. Stroud. Yeah, couldn't really do much of anything in this game. Wisconsin just dominated. I think at one point, were they up? Yeah, they were up 17-0. At one point, you know. That was the score at halftime, actually, 17-0 Wisconsin. And then, you know, they got 10 points, Maryland did, in the second half. 3 points in the third and 7 in the fourth. I didn't get in the end zone with a touchdown until the fourth quarter. Sad. I don't know what happened to Maryland. I was really high on Maryland after that Michigan game, you know, barely losing to Michigan, and then, you know, they kept winning, and I was like, and then they beat Michigan State, and I was like, man, they're doing really good. And now Maryland's really just fallen off the face of the planet. No one's really talking about Maryland anymore. And no, at no point should they have ever been ranked. Wisconsin, they play at Iowa next week. That'll be really interesting. Really interesting. So, that's another team that's, I think, 3-3. So that's some shakeups are going to be happening there. So real interesting there. Maryland, on the other hand, who do they play? Penn State. Probably not going to win that one, Maryland. We'll see, though. Probably not going to win that one. Moving on. Iowa scored points on offense. They beat Purdue on the road 24-3. What? Man, I gotta look at this actually. Were all of their points scored on offense? I gotta see. I'm not even mad about at Purdue for this one. I just want to see. All right, 16-yard pass from Spencer Petras for the touchdown. A 29-yard pass from Spencer Petras for a touchdown. 26-yard field goal. A 34-yard field goal. And a 75-yard run. Holy crap. On top of the fact that their offense was able to score 3 touchdowns, Spencer Petras had 2 touchdown passes, but Iowa's defense also had 2 picks in this game. Wow, they just played a very dominant performance, like an actually really dominant performance, not a type of dominant performance you see where Iowa just lets their defense pretty much just dominate all game, maybe get a takeaway, fumble recovery in the end zone or whatever, and just kind of grind out that win. They actually scored points on offense, and that's pretty crazy. I mean, it was only 24 points, but it was still that's a lot for Iowa. I'm really proud. I'm happy for Iowa. They've been beaten up all year on offense, but man, good job for Iowa. Who do they play next now? They play Wisconsin. I think I mentioned that already, though. They play Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska after that. Man, it's going to be interesting. I think the West is really going to sort itself out. We'll see. I think Illinois is still probably going to end up winning. They do control their destiny still. So we'll see. Purdue, on the other hand, who did they play? Who do they play? They play Illinois on the road. So, we'll see. I mean, Illinois can lose that game. Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to do this. My Big Ten losers of the week. Illinois. Man, Illinois at home. You're 7-1 on the season. 4-1 in the conference. Now you've lost a second game in the conference. Now you're 4-2 in the conference. And it's not like you lost to Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State. You lost to the Crybabies. The Michigan State Crybabies. How do you lose to the Crybabies? How do you lose to Telmucker? Come on now, Illinois. I'm disappointed. It was a great day in college football yesterday, you know. Michigan won. Clemson lost. Bama lost. Good day. Good day. Till I see this. Any day that, if you're a Michigan fan, and any day Michigan State wins is not a good day. Come on, Illinois. Man. 23-15 against Michigan State. Against the Crybabies. Oh, man. What am I going to do with you, Illinois? I mean, Tommy DeVito didn't play a bad game. He played a really good game, actually. 25-37, almost 300 yards and 2 scores through the air. I mean, he had all their scores. They were able to run the ball for a good amount, too, but it still wasn't enough. They ran the ball for 33 carries, 136 yards. So they... What the frick? What happened? Michigan State pulled away, wins this game 23-15. Man, and what's crazy is it was never really in doubt, was it? I mean, I guess at one point it was. Let's see, it was 7-3 Illinois. Then it was 9-7, Michigan State. And then Michigan State scored 2 more times. Oh, geez. It was 23-7 at one point. Illinois scored, went for 2, got it, made it a little closer at one point. But, man, couldn't pull out the win. Disappointed in you, Illinois. Can't believe you did this. I didn't want you to lose until you played Michigan. So, now you've disappointed me. But you still, it's okay. It's okay. Your season's not over or anything. You know, you still control your own destiny in the West. You know, you can still win the West. The only issue is now it's going to be a little tougher for you to win the West because now you're 1 extra game down. You know, you're still ahead of everyone in the West, but I mean, it's a good thing you're not in the East, or else you're done. You know, but you're in the West, so you still have a good chance, and you're still ahead, even at 2 losses in the conference. So Michigan State's not good, man. I don't know how you lose to them. They're not a good football team. You know, they like to beat people up, you know, in the tunnel. You know, they have more fight. There's more fight in the tunnel than outside of the tunnel. Man. But Michigan State plays Rutgers next week at home. So they'll probably, I don't know, we'll see what happens there. Rutgers can win that game. Illinois, on the other hand, who do they play? Purdue. So another game that's going to be really interesting. Iowa and Wisconsin, I think, are playing. And then you got Purdue and Illinois. I mean, these are just going to be some interesting games here. Then you got Michigan after that on the road and Northwestern on the road. So we'll see what happens with Illinois. I'm still worried about the Illinois game, obviously. But if you're a Michigan fan, I'm still worried. But, you know, not as worried. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what. Maybe that was just their bad game, and, you know, Michigan State just played their. Maybe Illinois was scared they'd get beat up if Michigan State didn't win. I don't know. But yeah, I'm sorry, Illinois. I didn't want to have to do this to you, but you're my Big Ten losers this week. So I know I didn't make this video last week. I just never got around to doing it, and then by the time I had thought about doing it, it was so late in the week that it was like, dude, I might as well just wait for the next games. There really wasn't anything super interesting from the week before. Anyway, what did we have last week? Ohio State beating Penn State 44-31, and a game that could have gone either way until pretty close to the end. Michigan beat Michigan State. I already made a video on it. Illinois destroyed Nebraska. Minnesota shut out Rutgers. And Iowa beat Northwestern. So, not really anything that interesting. But a little bit more interesting this week. Alright. So, yeah. Next week, Ohio State and Indiana. That's the only game that hasn't had a time announced for it. I'm assuming it'll be the 7:30 game then, because every other game has not gotten a 7:30 time. 2 noon games and 4 3:30 games. So, I mean, I guess they could still make it a noon game or a 3:30 game if they wanted to. But we'll see. Ohio State plays Indiana at home next week. Indiana is pretty much a non-factor in anything. So, I mean, Ohio State obviously just needs to keep winning to stay in the race. Obviously, Michigan and Ohio State could both lose a game and still make it. They just can't lose anymore. So, I mean, Michigan could lose to an Illinois and then play Ohio State and win the East. But how good of a chance would it be to make the playoffs? The playoffs are also what you want to make it to, and you really can't lose at this point in the season. So Ohio State really just needs to win. Illinois and Purdue. Yeah, this game is interesting. If Illinois loses this game to Purdue, which I just don't see happening for some reason, then it'll get really interesting. That would make Illinois 4-3 and Purdue 4-3, and then all of a sudden these teams are tied. So yeah, Michigan State and Rutgers. Who cares? Michigan, Nebraska. Same thing for Ohio State. Michigan just needs to keep winning. Nebraska's not a good football team. They got a bad record, so we should be able to win this game. But, crazy things happen. So, take Nebraska seriously like you do everyone else. Penn State, Maryland. Again, who really cares at this point? These East Division games don't really matter anymore. If you're not Michigan or Ohio State. Obviously, if you're Penn State, you'd want to keep winning. Just, for that slither of hope you make it. I can't see Michigan and Ohio State both losing multiple games in the conference anymore. I mean, the only way, Michigan could lose 2 out of their next 3 games and still be ahead of Penn State. Same with Ohio State. They can lose 2 out of their next 3 last games and still be ahead of Penn State. Penn State, they're just bound for 3rd place in the East. Maryland is bound for 4th in the East, whatever they are. Wisconsin and Iowa is also interesting. 2 3-3 schools here. And this game usually is like determining who goes to the Big Ten championship, but this year it's a little different, so pretty interesting there. And then Minnesota and Northwestern. Minnesota needs to keep winning to also stay in that race, and Northwestern, they just need a friggin' win at this point. I'm sure they would like one. But yeah, if we look at the standings, not for that, jeez. All right, yeah. When you look at the conference record, you have Michigan and Ohio State at 6-0, and then Penn State at 3rd at 4-2, Maryland at 3-3, Michigan State at 2-4, Rutgers at 1-5, and Indiana at 1-5. So, and none of these teams are going to overtake even Michigan, because I know we've played Penn State and beat them. We've played Maryland and beat them. We've played Michigan State and beat them. We played Rutgers and beat them. And we've played Indiana and beat them. We've beaten all these teams in the East. The only team we haven't beaten yet is Ohio State, and we haven't played them yet. So we'll see if we can beat them. That's at the end of the year. So it's a 2-way race between Michigan and Ohio State at this point. It'll likely come down to those schools no matter what, because I just can't see either school losing 2 games before then. I just can't. I can't. Unless Michigan or Ohio State want to lose 2 out of their next 3 or 3 out of their next 3, they would both teams, in order for Penn State to win the East, both teams would have to lose their last 3 games. And that's not going to happen because they play each other at the end of the year. So Penn State has 0% chance of winning. I think you all know this, though. But the West, a little more interesting here. Illinois, 4-2. And then you've got Wisconsin, Purdue, Iowa, and Minnesota at 3-3, and then you still got Nebraska at 2-4. I don't know about them. They still are technically in it, and I guess if you want to say Northwestern's still in it, then have fun with that. How Northwestern could possibly win? They're not. They're not. Give me a break. They're not. No, that's not happening. Northwestern can't win. Let's forget about Northwestern. And Nebraska even. I don't think Nebraska really has a chance. Illinois, now this all could be a waste of time to talk about. If Illinois wins out, they can win. They'll win. But they have to get through Michigan. I don't know if they can do that or not. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. I hope they don't. As a Michigan fan, I hope they don't prove me wrong. But, weird things happen all the time. So, yeah. So we'll see how it'll play out, and they'll sort themselves out, and we'll have a definitive winner by the end of the year. All right, let's look at some scores that happened throughout the season, throughout the country. So Tennessee exposing themselves as not the number 1 team. Georgia beats Tennessee 27-13. They dominated through this game. It was never in doubt. Georgia should absolutely be the number one team in the country. I don't even think it's close, really, at this point. Tennessee, I don't know. They'll either go down to, they could literally go down to 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. We'll see where the committee puts them. They'll probably just flip-flop, honestly. So Georgia wins there. Ohio State wins in a struggle game. Notre Dame beats Clemson 35-14. I mean, they were dominating. This is hilarious to me, though, but because them putting Clemson ahead of Michigan in the rankings, what the hell? I mean, give me a break. I mean, that was an absolutely terrible call to put Clemson ahead of us. Stupid. I mean, stupid. And literally Notre Dame just exposed them and proved that they're frauds. So get Clemson out of here, dude. Get them out of here. Michigan absolutely blew the doors off of Rutgers, 52-17. Bama lost again. That was probably the most exciting game of the day. Now, everyone was talking about Georgia, Tennessee, and how big of a game it was, but it ended up being a dominating game by Georgia, so it was kind of underwhelming. This LSU-Alabama game lived up to the hype, though, because the little hype it was given that Georgia, Tennessee took up pretty much most of that excitement. LSU ended up winning here, though, in overtime. They went into overtime. It was tied at 24. Bama got the ball to start overtime, scored a touchdown, got the extra point. LSU scored on their first play on offense in overtime. Went for two. Little fade to the end zone in the corner. Caught in the end zone. Touchdown. 2-point conversion is good. LSU wins 32-31. We were all celebrating that because any day Bama loses, and I've said this before, any day Bama loses, the country wins. The nation wins. So sorry, Alabama fans, you're not in the playoffs this year. Get out of here. You're not in the playoffs. At no point, I don't care if you make the SEC title game. At no point should Bama be in the playoffs. So let's see here. I want to actually look at the SEC standings because I don't actually know the SEC standings. If I can find it, there it is. Let's look at the standings. God dang it. Why does it do that? All right. So you know how Georgia and Tennessee are in the East. Georgia is 6-0 in the East. So, and Tennessee is 4-1. Georgia literally, I mean, they can even lose a game in these next three and still win the East. But they're not going to. They don't play anybody for the rest of the year. Who do they play for the rest of the year? Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Georgia Tech. Yeah, no, Georgia's not losing any of those games. Not one. Tennessee doesn't look like they're going to lose any games for the rest of the season either, but is it really going to matter? They play Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. No, Tennessee's not losing either. But also, Georgia wins the East at this point. I mean, I just can't see Georgia losing 2 games out of their next 3. It's not happening. Now, at this point in the season, LSU is actually at the top of the West, and believe it or not, Bama's at 3rd. Ole Miss is at 2nd. So LSU, all they got to do is win out, and they will win the West. So we got Arkansas, UAB, and Texas A&M. LSU can absolutely win all those games. I mean, absolutely win all those games. There's no reason why they should lose any 3 of those games. Those 3 schools that they're playing, well, let's see. What is Arkansas? Arkansas is 2-3 in the conference. They're 5-4 overall. Garbage. They're not good. UAB, who's UAB? They're 4-5. That's what they are. They're not good. They're not a good team. And then Texas A&M, give me a break. Texas A&M.
What are they? They're
3-6. They don't play any team with a winning record in the conference, and then they have UAB. LSU just needs to win these games against bad teams, and they win the West. And our SEC title game will be Georgia versus LSU. Now, I don't see LSU winning that game. Absolutely not. But I don't really care. As long as Bama's not in it. That's what I say. So, Bama, I think their season's pretty much done at this point. So, yeah. Let's see. Let's go back to the top 25 and scroll down. TCU got the win. 10-point win over Texas Tech, 34-24. So they remain undefeated. They're 9-0 as well. So TCU, you're gonna go ahead of Bama. At least you absolutely should. If you don't get ahead of Bama, you're absolutely getting screwed over. But yeah, you should go ahead of Bama right now. Because you have the better resume and you're better according to record. So I'm not saying that TCU would beat Alabama on any given week. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying TCU is continuously winning and needs to be rewarded for it. So they should absolutely be in the top 5 at this point, TCU. You know why? Because the two teams ahead of them, actually 3 teams ahead of them, lost. 3 out of the top 6 teams lost this weekend. That's the crazy thing. That's what's so crazy about this past weekend and why it was one of the craziest weekends in college football all year and why we love the sport. 3 out of the top 6 teams lost. Tennessee at number 1. You've got Clemson at number 4. And you've got Alabama at number 6. All losing this past weekend. So according to that, we should be seeing a Georgia at number 1. And then they can put whoever they want at number 2. I don't know. We'll probably put LSU pretty high up at this point. We'll see where they spot LSU. Yeah, Georgia will be in there at number 1. I'm kind of just predicting the playoffs at this point. Georgia at number 1. Number 2 will either be Ohio State or Michigan. At this point, yeah, it's got to be either Ohio State or Michigan, depending on who they want to put up there. And then, number 3 will be either Ohio State or Michigan, I would say. Number 4, honestly, should be TCU. I'm just saying. And then if you want to put LSU up there as well, I wouldn't have an issue with that. Would not have an issue with that. So we'll see what comes out as. Oregon, number 8. Oregon destroyed Colorado. Colorado is absolutely awful. USC had a close game with California. I know USC is just overrated, man. I know they're a top 10 team, and they only have 1 loss, but USC's overrated. I'm calling it right now. They're going to lose to Notre Dame at the end of the year. They are. Give me a break. USC's not winning that game. I just can't see it. Notre Dame should be ranked, by the way. They should at least be in top 25, at least like 20 through 25, somewhere in that range. No better than 20, though, because they've lost too many games to really deserve to be really high. But USC wins here. UCLA ended up beating Arizona State 50-36. So again, they're the 12th team. Not really that impressive. Texas beat Kansas State. Kansas State was much higher ranked. They're at 13, so they're done. And Texas at 24, so they're kind of fighting their way back in towards the rankings a little bit more. But I think they're pretty much done for when it comes to making the playoffs. They've lost too much and they're too low ranked right now. Utah beat Arizona 45-20. Penn State beat Indiana. Illinois lost to Michigan State. North Carolina continues to win. Only has one loss still to Notre Dame. And no one's really talking about North Carolina. But they barely beat Virginia. So I guess should they be? Kansas just beat the snot out of Oklahoma State. What happened to Oklahoma State, man? They should not be ranked anymore. They're done. Tulane, they beat Tulsa, so they keep winning. They still have only one loss, but they're undefeated in their conference, in the American Conference. Syracuse has lost their third game in a row, dude. They started 6-0. Syracuse did 6-0. And now they've lost 3 in a row to Clemson, Notre Dame, and now Pittsburgh. And not a good Pittsburgh team. This is a 2-3 ACC school here. 19-9 was the final. Oh, but it was on the road. You lost to Pittsburgh. No excuses. Syracuse, you're done. No good. Garbage. NC State and Wake Forest was a big game, I guess no one was talking about. 22 ranked NC State beat 21 ranked Wake Forest 30-21. How much you want to bet they're just going to flip-flop in the next playoff rankings? And then UCF beat Memphis 35-28. So UCF might go up a spot or two in the rankings from 25. We'll see. So next week, is there any big games next week? Any big games at all? USC plays Colorado, so they should win that. Ohio State, Indiana, Washington, and Oregon. Not really big game there. UCLA, Arizona, no. Stanford and Utah. Good gracious. Anything good. Oregon State, California, Tennessee, Mizzou. The heck are these games? LSU, Arkansas, Purdue, Illinois, Clemson, Louisville, Michigan, Nebraska, Bama, and Ole Miss. That's probably the biggest game right there, I guess. Ole Miss may be in the top 10. Alabama may fall out of the... Who knows? Ole Miss honestly might be ranked ahead of Bama. We'll see. Penn State, Maryland, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, which is no longer a top 25 game because I think Oklahoma State's going to fall out of the top 25. UCF and Tulane might be a pretty exciting lower range game. NC State, Boston College, Georgia, Mississippi State, Kansas State, Baylor, TCU, and Texas will be a good one. That should be a good one. I really do. Texas is trying to fight their way back up, and TCU wants to remain undefeated. I think TCU could lose that game. So that's a 7:30 game people should be watching. North Carolina, Wake Forest will be looks decent. Syracuse, Florida State. Syracuse is not going to be ranked anymore, so that's not going to be a top 25 game anymore. Not really anything that great next week, unfortunately. Outside of maybe TCU and Texas and Bama and Ole Miss. Might be the only games that are on that's any good, but are they really that good anymore? Because Bama lost the second game, so it's not really that big of a deal anymore. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's pretty much it for this video, though. I went on for almost 45 minutes. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of the week in college football. And I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, bye.